Okay, well, let's get this going, guys. Everyone out there, I'm really excited tonight to welcome Lior to Dunera. As many of you are aware, we just launched the new website, Dunera.com, and it's just so great to start off this new journey by welcoming one of my favorite singers and a good friend. We've orbited around each other as artists, but never actually had the opportunity to really talk about your life, Lior, and your career. You've been a real light and an inspiration to many fellow musicians with your lustrous melodic weavings and clever, beautiful, stunning harmony, and your collaborations with some of the biggest and most prominent composers in the country. And you've also been able to reinvent yourself through your music many, many times over, but you've stayed faithful and genuine to your voice. You're one of those artists that's not really, open to sacrificing your sound just because of a trend. And live, which I've experienced a few times, you create a feeling of real intimacy and closeness with the way you project. In fact, just seeing you sound check is a feat in itself. You're such a perfectionist, but not in an arrogant way, but just because you really care. I've also learned over the years that you're a mentor to many students, kind of like I am, in a different way, but you also unearth new talent where you find it, which is really to be applauded. And it's apparent in your latest release, obviously with Domini in Animal in Hiding, and we'll talk about that a bit more. But she was a student that you discovered, I think, while working in schools, and then she went on tour with you, that's just such an exciting story. But more of that later. Friends, everyone, Haverim, welcome to Superpowers on Dunera.com. I invite you all to comment in the chat at any time. So everyone, why don't you just have a go and say hi to me and Lior, and hi to each other. You're welcome to write each other love letters the whole way around. I don't care. That's what it's all about. But let's get into it. Lior, you're bilingual. You were born in Israel. Hebrew, I imagine, is your mother tongue. So I've got lots of questions that I hope people find interesting, but what I want to just open up with is, what's the difference for you singing in Hebrew and English? And maybe it might be appropriate for you to paint a picture of the environment you grew up in Israel, after you kind of let us know how that feels to sing in Hebrew compared to English. What was it like growing up in Israel as well?
It's a good question. No one's ever really asked me what the difference between singing in Hebrew and English. But before I start, I should also say thank you, Ilan. That's a beautiful introduction. I really appreciate that. Yes, so I was born in Israel and lived there till around about the age of 10 when I moved to Australia. So it is my mother tongue. These days, my English is far better, and I still speak Hebrew with my parents and my family, but it's sort of got stuck at a sort of frustrating kind of year 3 level, which it's never really progressed beyond. So I have limitations in the way I can express myself. But look, singing in Hebrew, it does feel different, and it's, I guess it also relates to the two different types of singing that I do in Hebrew. One is singing, contemporary modern songs, which I don't do a lot of, and it's probably mainly other people's songs. So in fact, just now I'm working with a group of Melbourne musicians to put together a tribute show to Kaveret, the Israeli band from the 70s who we all grew up on, and that, to me, that just feels like childhood. That's just singing the songs of my childhood, and it's just filled with the very best of what Israel is to me. It's humorous, it's sophisticated. So to me, it's just, it's fun and it's liberating. But then there's the orchestral stuff that I do with Nigel Westlake, which you touched on, Compassion. And in that, I'm singing ancient Hebrew texts. And obviously that's much more loaded, and it carries with it a sort of transmission of lineage. So that feels very heavy, and but in a good way, and sort of it's soaked in identity, if you like. Whereas I guess in English, it's my everyday language, so it feels like I'm, maybe it's an elevated way of speaking.
Did you learn Khazanut? Did you like to be able to do that, or it's just through your ears, through imitation, through listening?
Yeah, I think it is imitation. I never studied Chazanut, no, but I can only put it down to the fact of when I was growing up in Israel, you'd hear top 40 stuff on the radio, and then you'd hear, in the Tachana Merkazit, the bus station, you'd hear, Arabic music. And then I remember every Friday night there used to be Egyptian films on TV, and you'd hear all those beautiful soundtracks. And so I guess maybe growing up, the difference between like what we kind of often divide as Western and Eastern music, it wasn't that great. And when I started singing, yeah, like you said, it was imitation. I knew these Jewish songs. I'd hear these beautiful Indian raga singers, and I'd sort of try and find the subset where they all kind of meet, and take the inflections that I like, and then just kind of try and make it my own.
Wow, fantastic, fantastic. So, and then growing up in Israel, the first 10 years of your life, what just paint a little bit for us? What are some of the beautiful memories that you have there, or hard memories, or whatever they are? What comes to mind? What flashes up when you think of childhood in Israel?
A lot of sunshine and freedom. Just it was a typical kind of Mediterranean warm way of growing up. I remember growing up. We lived in the fourth floor of an apartment. It was the top floor. The neighbors' doors would be open. Our door would be open. We'd be in and out of each other's house and running down and playing with the kids. So it was very just community and neighborhood, and never had a lot, but didn't ever feel like I went without. But at the same time, I have these very vivid kind of weighty memories. I remember it was during the Lebanon War, and I remember there were funeral processions down the main road where we lived. I remember the minute silence of Yom HaZikaron. So I was definitely tapped into the fact that there was heaviness as well. And I don't know, maybe emotionally that sort of that was maturing or something.
Sure, and you can hear that in some of the music, that you've had. It obviously is threaded through. Is there an example there that you can give, maybe in your music, that in some of the songs?
Well, maybe compassion is a good one to draw on, because the seed of that was singing Avinu Malkeinu, and my first memory of Avinu Malkeinu was going to synagogue with my grandfather, who in Ra'anana, and hearing that, and he was such a prominent figure in my life, and so when I first started singing that, that to me, that embodied not just so many elements of the Jewish tradition, but my grandfather and the lineage. Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, I couldn't think of a better thing to do right now, but just to play a clip. We do have some wonderful clips prepared for everyone out there tonight. This first clip that we're going to play is a collaboration you did with Nigel Westlake in Compassion. While I'm lining it up, why don't you give people just a sense of what that collaboration was all about?
So Compassion is a symphonic song cycle for voice and orchestra. I met Nigel. It's a very long story. We may not have time for that, but essentially I was performing at a concert that Nigel and his wife were holding, and I chose to finish the concert with an a cappella version of Avinu Malkeinu, and I spoke about how there's a line in Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu, that I read as meaning, instill me with compassion so that I can be freed or liberated. And that's such a beautiful link, to the idea of being a more compassionate person leading you to being a freer person. And so I spoke about this hymn, and I sang it, and Nigel and the audience that night were very moved, and he approached me about, and we spoke about putting an orchestral arrangement behind this prayer that I'd only ever sung a cappella, and that was the seed. And after we were commissioned by the Sydney Symphony to do a greater work, and we were thinking about ways to expand. I only had Avinu Malkeinu, that's all I had, And I didn't want to just collect other Jewish texts because I felt that would make it a Jewish piece, and I wanted to draw on the universality of the message that I was transmitting through Avinu Malkeinu about compassion. After some thought, I came up with the idea of seeing if I could find some Arabic texts that had a similar message. And I worked together with Walid Ali at the time, who helped me uncover these beautiful Arabic texts. And so Compassion is a 7-movement piece that weaves between ancient Hebrew and ancient Arabic, but it's all about the wisdom of compassion. But this that you're about to see is an excerpt of the final movement, which is Avinu Malkeinu, and fittingly so, because it was the seed to the whole project.
Well, it certainly climaxes the whole project. I've watched this many, many times over the last few years, and I've sent it to many people. So I love this. We are going to play the whole excerpt of Avinu Malkeinu here, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll just play that. It's like 4 minutes long or something. So stick with us, everyone. And thanks, Lior. This is fantastic. I'm just going to share the screen. just amazing. Goosebumps. I lost myself. I forgot I was here, actually.
Ah,
Fantastic. That must be interesting watching that back. How does it feel? I mean, to have a song like that you've been singing for many years, and then for it to be flipped in such interesting ways, giving it new color, take and being faithful to its history, but then taking it to a brand new place. Congratulations. I mean, it's just so beautiful. I'm sure for you to have that in if it to keep, it's amazing.
thanks, Ilan. Yeah, look, it was a real thrill. I was so nervous before that show. That was the premiere of Compassion with the Sydney Symphony at the Opera House, and I remember they were recording it and they were filming it, and I was just terrified. I'd never really stood in front of an orchestra and sang, and I was just so glad that it went well.
Yeah, I've done orchestras before, and you really on the moment. I mean, you can't. There's not a lot of room, as far as how far you can stretch things. It's not like you can just repeat a section if you feel
That's
like.
right. That's right. And you and I, who have grown up, singing our songs, playing in clubs, we know that if you make a mistake or if someone does, you just go, oh, let's go back to the top, guys. You know that's not an option with an orchestra. So yeah, it's pretty nervy.
Look, while we're on it, before we just launch into your solo work, now that we're talking about your collaborations and things like that, you've worked with some incredible international Australian artists, and it's amazing the breadth of it as well. I'm going to name a few: Paul Grabowski, Joseph Tawadros, Nigel Westlake, Yelena Katz-Chernin, Nadav Khan, Tony Buchan, with your Air, Land and Sea project. You've done theatre work. You've gone to Gallipoli. You've even been in Fiddler on the Roof, which I must touch on in just a sec. Now, Yelena's a good friend. She's an incredible piano player. You did a project, like a kids project with that. What was that about?
Yeah, we did a kids album for the Hush Foundation, which is an organisation that basically create music to be played in the children's wards, cancer wards. It's headed up by a beautiful woman called Dr. Catherine Crock in Melbourne. And every year they put out an album, and the album has a dual purpose of both serving as music for the kids to listen to, but also to raise money for the wards. And every year they select a different artist, and traditionally it's always been instrumental music. It's mainly been orchestras. And a few years ago, they approached the Idea of North, who I'm sure a lot of people know, beautiful Sydney-based a cappella group, about doing a musical soundtrack to The Little Prince. And they said, do you know anyone that we can bring in as the voice of the Little Prince? And we're good friends. And they said, well, how about we see if Lior wants to do it? And they approached me, and they also approached Elena as well. And they were hoping that the three of us would collaborate on a musical telling of the story of the Little Prince. Anyway, it so happens that year there was a movie being made of The Little Prince, and so the owners of the copyright, the estate of, I can't remember the name of the person that wrote it, someone listening here, which I'm sure does, they wouldn't agree to hand over the rights. So we had to think, suddenly we were left without an idea. And
Gee, not even handing over the rights for that concept to help
No.
a children's hospital.
They just didn't want to know about it, really. So I drew upon my favourite kids album growing up, and it still is one of my favourite albums. It's called Akevesa Shishasa. I'm sure you know it. Classic Israeli kids album that sort of the top artists at the time, I think it was 76, David Boza and Gidi Gov and Yudit Ravitz, they all got together and wrote these beautiful songs, lyrics written by Jonathan Geffen about these little stories from the perspective of kids. So I suggested that we actually go into the wards and we come up with a whole bunch of questions and ask the kids to answer these questions. And they were questions like, if you could change one thing about the world, what would it be? Or what's your favorite thing in the world? Or all these questions. And as you can imagine, the answers we got were absolutely hilarious. And then we gathered up all these lyrics and we started writing music to these answers. So the album is called A Piece of Quiet, because one of the girls' answers when we asked her, what she likes, what she doesn't like, she said, I really don't like it when my brother makes a lot of noise. I just wish he'd give me a piece of quiet, which she thought was how you say peace and quiet. And so it's called A Piece of Quiet. And I was going back to your question. I got to work with Elena, who wrote some beautiful music to it.
She's an incredible composer, and what a character.
Yeah, what a gorgeous woman. So
Yeah.
full of love. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we can get to some more collaborations later. Let's rewind and move to your 2004 album Autumn Flow, which I'm sure just about everyone in this interview is quite versed in. There's some really incredible, mesmerizing compositions on there for someone that was so young. The album that broke you, songs like Daniel and Bedouin Song, and of course This Old Love. Describe that feeling of knowing that something's happening. Like there's a tilt, the aeroplane's taking off, something's happening. I know from being an artist, when it's all first starting off, it can be a real struggle, and you doubt yourself, and you don't know where anything's heading, and then all of a sudden you'll hear the song on the radio, or you'll start getting wonderful messages from fans. Just take us back there, and that feeling that something's happening and it's your music that's doing it, you know?
Yeah, one story comes to mind. So I put out Autumn Flow, and as you said, after being years of sort of doing really kind of crap gigs and being broke, and I just knew I had to make this one album, and I thought I almost don't care what happens, I just have to capture these songs. Anyway, so I made this album on a shoestring budget, and I really didn't know what I was doing. And so I booked a tour, and I had a band, and I booked I think it was 5 or 6 shows in like the East Coast, and we started doing these shows, and of course no one knew about it. It hadn't had any radio play, so we did these shows, and no one came to the shows. But I mean, like no one. So we did these shows, and it was just a disaster, and I lost heaps of money. And the last show was in Melbourne, which is where I was living at the time. I was staying there. And so about 60 to 70 family and friends came to the launch of the album after a disastrous tour. And the next morning I dropped my band members off to the airport, and we were all dejected, and I was driving to where I was staying, and I just thought, I don't know how much longer I can do this. This is just heartbreaking. And I turned on the radio, and there was a presenter called Gabby Brown, and she used to do the top 50 songs of the week. And she said, I'm going to play you a song that's coming to the station. Yeah, just tell me what you think. It's by a Sydney-based artist called Lior. And yeah, look, tell me what you think. And I'm driving there, completely worn out, broke, and I'm going, now you choose to play the song? Wow. But anyway, it was a cool thrill to have the song on the radio. Anyway, the song finished, and she came back and she said, the phone's just going nuts. Like, people are calling and they want to know what this song is and who this artist is. So let me tell you a little bit about him. And she started talking about, and I remember just tears streaming down my face. And that was the moment, because to me, it said, people don't know anything about me, but they're connecting purely on the strength of the song. It's just the music and the song that's moved them. And that's what I always wanted, and I guess much of my career has been based on that organic connection with my audience. And in that moment, like, it was just that validation that yeah, it's there, it can happen. Just
that story reminds me, for some reason, when you're at the depths of despair and now you decide to, it's almost like, Moses begging, God for the seas to part because the Egyptians are on their heels, and he sends someone into the water, and they're up to here and they're up to here and they're up there. And then just as they're about to be engulfed and suffocated, boom, your world opens up.
It's 11:59 on the clock. Yeah.
And then was it a whirlwind, or was it just kind of like, okay, control? Who did you talk me about the team that you put together, and the next couple of years, basically? I mean, just overview on then what happened.
It was a whirlwind. The moment where it really turned around was when in January 2005, Triple J decided to feature the album. And I had a good friend in the music industry, and she called me and said, guess whose feature album this week? And I just didn't believe it. I said, if this is a joke, it's not funny. And that was, particularly back then, Triple J, I don't know, I feel it's different now. If you had feature album on Triple J, you just had an audience. And I could start touring. And my team was very small. I wasn't with a label, so I was literally working with a very young manager. We were both extremely green, and we were just making it up as we went along. And we made some terrible mistakes, but we were having a lot of fun. And I often think back and I go, do I regret not going with a label and someone who could have steered me a little bit better, perhaps? And but I think no one tried to step on my creative control. I was free to do what I want creatively. Being also back then in my 20s, I was headstrong and stubborn, and I probably wouldn't have taken well to that at all. So yeah, and the next 2 years were amazing. I was started to travel overseas and play the songs, and it was just I guess it's that moment that you believe. You struggle with the idea of believing in yourself, and you're just looking for validation. You're always wondering, is it just me? Do I just like my stuff because it's coming out of me? And then when you have that moment that people feel about it the same way that you do, it's an incredible,
Pretty amazing.
thing. Yeah.
You mentioned the word creativity, and it's definitely something that I'd just throw around very easily when describing your music. There's a lot of movement, there's a lot going on there, even though you might be sitting on stage, just you and the guitar quite often. There's lots of intricate things going on, and there's a kind of control that I envy. I think it's incredible. But then, you do exercise demons on there as well. I've seen you go there. Just talk to me about your control over your instrument, and did you learn your teachers? How have you kind of mastered what you do? Because we also come to see you as a guitarist. It's very special to watch you play. So how did that come about?
Oh, thanks, Ilan. I certainly don't feel like I've mastered anything, but I'll gladly accept that compliment. Look, I came to music through the guitar. I the only teacher I knew at the time in Sydney was a classical guitar teacher. She was a beautiful old woman who had studied with Segovia and was a concert artist. And she was a Hungarian woman that lived in Roseville, and she taught guitar. And I went and saw her. And so just by chance, I started studying classical guitar. And that was for a few years.
This is age 11, 12, or
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, probably a little bit older, maybe 13, 14.
Yeah.
And then by about the age of 15, I started singing, and I was kind of getting into blues and listening to the bands of the 70s. And I thought, oh, I don't want to be a classical guitarist, but it just gave me so much facility in my right hand as well as left. So I could start finger picking and coming up with patterns. And I just liked that richness of finger picking. And then I started singing along with it. And I felt, wow, this is such a small world. I'm just singing and finger picking, but it's also feels like a complete...
For those out there, just explain what finger picking is as opposed to any...
Yeah, as opposed to, you're putting chords on the left hand, but rather than just kind of strumming like this, I'm plucking notes as well. So I'm playing it like a harp, if you like. And it just creates, more movement, more harmony, more interesting...
Well, now that you're talking about finger picking, I mean, maybe it's time just to, we're halfway through the interview. I'm not sure whether you've prepared anything to sing, but we all would love to hear you play. As he takes a sip of water.
Sure.
Please, maybe you can give an example of what finger picking is, and then launch into a bit of a song.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I do a lot of finger picking, but I think if I'm gonna do a song, I think this one kind of works well in a stripped back kind of way, and I did spend a bit of time talking about my grandfather, so I'd like to probably play this song, which is very simply titled My Grandfather. When I was born, my grandfather held me in his warm hands, and it seems though his eyes are teary, but it's hard to tell from the old photograph. While my brother and sister danced at the feet of his tired and weathered frame, he said, There's a light to this boy I've rarely seen, and there he gave me my name. Well, my grandfather was a sniper in the Red Army. He never knew any brothers in arms, for on both sides stood enemy. With a cold, unbroken will to survive, his steady hand took aim, and he drank just enough to keep himself warm, for he never spoke his true name. When I was a boy, the summers were ours. He would take me down to the sea. He'd stand on the water's edge and watch me go crazy as the gentle waves rolled in. Looking back, I wonder how he must have felt watching me running so free. All the years in his life he wished he could forget. Did he look at the world through me? When I was a man, I flew across the ocean when I heard he needed care. I listened as he spoke of his turbulent life from his ordinary chair. And he ended by saying, oh, I've had enough. The time's come for me to go. I have only one wish that is left in me, to be taken peacefully. Just before I was due to marry, I heard he could not walk anymore. It was then he gave up fight. I had said goodbye almost 1 year before. And I'll never forget something he told me. Yes, it's a cruel world, but you must live without fear. Well, I sure do miss my grandfather. He's the reason why I'm here.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for playing that. You're such a good boy. Stunning. That was. It was a traveling song as well. Felt like it was a shanty or yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I had that chord progression kicking around for a long time, and I heard it as a sea shanty. Yeah, and I was looking for lyrics to marry it to, and I'd wanted to write a lyric in tribute of my grandfather for years, and just couldn't quite nail it. And then it just, as often with these things, it just came in about 15 minutes and just poured out.
Well, he certainly gave the impression that your grandfather still lives inside you, and that's
Yeah,
one.
most definitely.
That's beautiful. Now, talking about like influences, because I guess your grandfather was a bit of an influence. As we jump into talking about the new release that you've just done with Dominique called Animal in Hiding, which I must say I love and has been on repeat the last week, and congratulations.
Thanks, Ilan.
I thought it'd be a good idea, rather than just name your influences, rather look at how this album can make you feel and some of kind of your favorite songs in that genre. And I know that you could probably listen to this EP in many different ways. Like you could put it on at a picnic, you could listen to it in the bath, put it on at a cafe while you're cooking. I feel like its prime calling is to be listened to under the full moon, sitting out on the porch at magic hour. So I asked you to give us a couple of songs just to talk about, which are your songs to listen to in the moonlight. One of which we can jump into, is by James Taylor, called Carolina on My Mind. It's like a really nostalgic, missing home kind of song, but it's also the kind of song that I guess could go behind a hitchhiking movie as you get into the combi and your hands out the window with the wind in your hair, you know. But what is it about James Taylor, and specifically this song, that made you choose it as the kind of music that you might listen to on a full moon?
Yeah, you're right. It is a missing home song. There's something about James Taylor and the way he sings that really resonates with me. And I'm so much about the lyric. I love words, and I just love understatement. I love singing. Not to show how well you can sing, but singing is just a real true connection with a lyric. And I think he's a great example of someone who is just so impressive, but on subtle things like the way just phrasing and tone, and just the way he's able to connect to really communicate the lyric. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, another singer that you actually mentioned, and I absolutely agree about James Taylor, amazing. Another singer that you mentioned was Vince Jones, the Australian jazz singer. Do you know Vince Jones?
I've met him a few times, yeah.
He's a character.
Absolute character, and just one of my favorite singers. Like internationally, I think he's just world class, amazing.
So the song you chose, I love the title. I'd never heard it before. I gave it a listen. C'est la vie, c'est la vie. Is it that notion, that feeling of, well, that's life, that you can listen to it and you're just sitting out on that porch? And what was this song about? Is it the jazz changes? Is it the whole arrangement of it? It's really beautiful.
Look, it is, but again, it's the lyric. I just think it captures such a beautiful sentiment, and yeah, not many people know it. So I'll try and sing a couple of verses to summarize the lyric. All right. John's in love with Jane, Jane's in love with Jim, and Jim's in love with someone who is not in love with him. What was meant to be will be. C'est la vie, c'est la vie. Life's a funny thing when it comes to love. You don't always conquer the one you're dreaming of, as they say in old Paris. C'est la vie, c'est la vie. He says it all, doesn't it?
Oh là là, c'est incroyable.
Not many people know that song. It's like a classic that not many people know.
Have you ever recorded it?
No.
Oh man, it's stunning the way you sing it. Yeah. I'd sooner listen to you than Vince Jones.
No.
Yeah, I'm saying. Okay, so the third, I asked you to pick three. The third was from a more modern artist called Feist. A Canadian singer, Leslie Feist, who's fantastic. She's actually from an indie rock band. What were they called? Broken Social Scene.
Yeah, Broken Social Scene. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes, Feist is beautiful, and she's a lot of people came to know her through 1, 2, 3, 4, which was on the iTunes ad.
Which Sally Seltman wrote.
Sally Selman, Australian artist, yeah. But before that, Feist had an album called Let It Die, and that's actually my favorite album of hers. And she creates this really rich and textural world through very small instruments. And I think that's why it's like a bit of a moonlight song. It's just, there's nothing kind of grating. It's just really, but they're not twee. They're just beautiful little kind of emblems just everywhere. And she's got a song called Mushaboom, and it's my favorite opening line to any song, which says, helping the kids out of their coats, but wait, the babies haven't been born. So she's projecting about this kind of dreaming of this settled kind of life and being content. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a beautiful line in that I picked up that was very Lior-esque actually. Old dirt road, knee deep snow, watching the fire as we grow old. Stunning, stunning, simple and beautiful. Okay, so let's talk about your new release. By the way, are you having a good time, Lior? This is
I'm
fun.
having a really good time. I hope people are as well. It's lovely talking to you, Ilan. You're very good at this.
I was nervous before, man. Like it feels good to be here though. So let's just talk about your collaborator on this, and then we'll have a quick squeeze at one of the songs. It's a great EP. Now her name is Domini. What's her full name, actually?
That's Dominique Forster.
Okay, Domini Forster. And just tell us about how you met her, and then we'll kind of what happened and that led to this collab.
So a good friend of mine is a music educator. He teaches at a university here in Melbourne. And a few years ago, he said, he approached me and told me that every year they hold a songwriting competition for their students. And he said, would you come in as a guest artist and perform just a song, maybe a couple of songs while the judges deliberate and arrive at their decision. So I agreed and I came in and I'm just sitting there watching the students come out, and there's some beautiful singer-songwriters, and then this gorgeous songbird comes out and starts singing, and everyone just kind of melts, and she wins the competition. And so afterwards, and she was very young, she was in her early 20s, and I approached her and said, look, I'm doing a regional Victorian tour solo. Do you want to come and be my support artist? And she agreed, and I just... There began a really solid and solid like musical relationship, where then she would start coming up and joining me on a duet that I wrote called I'll Forget You, and yeah, we just over time we realized how much we enjoyed singing together. So leading up to my last solo album, we decided we'd sit down and try and write a song together to see if the synergy of our voices translates to the writing, and it did, and we wrote a song called Where Will We Be, and that's on my last solo release. And it came out better than expected. And so just before COVID hit, we decided we'd embark on a collaborative project of writing a handful of songs. And it really was led because we just loved singing together so much and felt like we really got each other vocally. And the first track we wrote was called Animal in Hiding, and tackled the theme of isolation. And this was before we knew anything about COVID. So and we started, and then COVID hit and we were locked down, but fortunately we had come up with enough sort of work to keep on working remotely, and then between lockdowns in Melbourne we quickly rushed out to Montsalvat, which is this artist colony just outside of Melbourne, and we recorded our parts, and then had to work together with a producer in like sending the parts to musicians and getting them to send them in and putting it all together. So it was a really, really great focus to have at a time that was like really challenging on many levels.
But still, and a challenge to get the record done as well, I imagine, being in different city. I mean, I've done loads of collabs now in quite successful ones that I've really enjoyed, but not being in the room is a real test. And your voices do work as one. I mean, it must feel amazing to feel like you have a shadow or whatever it is in a positive way, and so close. And I mean, there's songs like Anchor is just amazing. The lyrics on that song and the harmonies. But what the song I wanted to talk about, and we've got an incredible video of this, is a song called Gloria. Now, this video was recorded live at Montsalvat,
yeah, that I was talking about. Yeah.
Should I know about that place?
You should. I don't know if you do, but
tell me about Montsalvat.
Well, so Montsalvat is the artist colony I was referring to, where we recorded. So after we finished the EP, we were looking for a place just to record, us performing.
Of course.
And we went back to Montsalvat, and this is shot live in one take in the room where we recorded the EP.
Yeah, it's like a beautiful story. Let's just before we watch it, it feels like it's a reflection of a woman having been born in the Great Depression, in the country, who's had a very tricky life. Yeah, she was a nurse in the war, and from the lyrics, it's like she lost her parents young as well. I really love that empathy and storytelling that you guys gave it. Who is this woman? Who's Gloria?
So Gloria is a woman that I met when I was walking my dog at the park a few years ago, and she came up to me, and she was an elderly woman, obviously, and she asked me if I would walk her home because it was getting dark. And she said, I don't like to walk home alone in the dark. Mm. And sometimes your mind goes to places that you're not sort of, you'd like to think yourself a better person. So of course I agreed to walk her home, but I remember thinking, oh, okay, yeah, geez, I've got so much to do, and really, okay, I just will. But in my mind, it was like, I'm not going to get anything out of this. This is going to be a mitzvah, and I'll just do it. And we started walking, and Glory was this incredible woman who, as you said, went through these hardships in life and was so incredibly strong, and she was so full of these colourful stories and wisdom. And we got to her house, and I was thankful that she asked me to walk her home. And I think, I wanted to write a song about just how we do sometimes dismiss, particularly the elderly as well. It's this reflex that we have. So when I say we, I and a lot of us, just this reflex of dismissal when, on the contrary, the elderly often have so much to impart on us and teach us. So that's the backbone of the story.
Indeed, indeed. And we welcome, everyone of all ages here on Dunera. It's just so wonderful to be able to be part of this process and meeting new people all the time as well. So I'm going to play this video. It's sensational. It's all just one shot. I'm going to play the length of the video. It's a gorgeous song. Everyone, I hope you enjoy. Let's get this up. So yeah, Lior and Domini, Gloria.
They find it easy to look right through you, and so do I. I'll walk you home 'cause you need me to make it back for the 6 o'clock news. To pass the time, you told me you've lived alone since you were a nurse in the war. And it seems the more you collect, the less there is to find. Glorious steps are out of time. Born on the evening of Black Tuesday, they're on the border of 2 small towns. Lost both her parents on the road. She was only 6 years old.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. How's it feel to watch that?
Good, good, good.
No, I mean, it's just it was that a live recording as you did it,
Yes.
or was it
Yeah, that was completely live.
really cool, really cool. And look, we've got such beautiful comments here. I'm just going to read some out. Dylan says, "So dreamy, takes you to a whole new place." Hisham, loving it. Your voices make magic together. This is the beauty of Zoom, I guess.
Immediate
You
feedback.
get immediate feedback, but you know, it's good. Exquisite. How blessed are we? Now, I'm just going to open it up to one or two questions if anyone's got them. If you don't have them, that's fine as well. While you're all thinking of questions, I'm just going to play one quick excerpt, if that's okay, Lior. It's from another song, which what I call is a breakup banger. I think called "Honest Mistake." Is that correct? Is it a breakup banger?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, this excerpt is near the end of the song, and there's wonderfully rich string arrangements. It's almost like it's mahogany. It's like tears are dripping off the song at the end of it. I guess what I'm trying to say is that you're not just a songwriter, are you? You're more than that. You also get very involved in the orchestration, and you are sort of like an auteur to your own sound. With this song, I don't know whether you did the string arrangement to this song. It's gorgeous.
Thanks, Ilan. I can't take credit for the strings, unfortunately. I mean, I conceptually guided them, but this was actually one of the benefits of working remotely, that the producer we were working with suggested this beautiful string arranger who's based in Berlin, and she arranged the strings. So that was the one nice thing. We got to work with people that we otherwise wouldn't, because, you know, geography was no barrier, I guess.
Okay, well, look, I apologize if it just kind of starts in the middle of something, but I think it's around the 3-minute point. I'd just like to share with you guys. Stay tuned, guys. We're going to turn to your questions in a sec, guys. Please don't be shy. We don't have long here, but Lior, it's been wonderful, and stay on, everyone. Let's watch this. So this is from Honest Mistake. Awesome. I love it. Those illustrations are great. I'm just going to keep the music going in the background as we chat.
Yeah, that was a friend of Domini who's a drawer, Phoebe her name is, and she did a beautiful drawing to the lyric video there.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's jump. We've got a couple of questions here. From Hisham, amazing interview. Well, thank you. I'll take a little bit of credit for that. But Lior, when can we see you live in Sydney? Is a question.
Oh yeah, right. Good question. I'm dying to come to Sydney. I mean, you know, Sydney's where I grew up, right? So we're working on it. Next year there'll be heaps of tour dates. In fact, Dominic and I have got a lot of tour dates planned for next year. So there'll definitely be some Sydney dates. I'll announce that. I think. Well,
we'll keep up. From Ms. Filer, who I know, hi Ms, we're saying hi to you. She's a good friend in Singapore. We are international at Dunera here. Who would be a dream performer for you to share the stage with that you haven't had the opportunity to yet?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, we touched on Feist earlier. I'd love to share the stage with Feist. I think Rufus Wainwright is great as well. He does some beautiful things, and love to sing with him too.
What about performers who are no longer here with us? Is there anyone would you like to bring out? Nusrat Ali Fateh Khan or someone like
Maybe
him?
Bob Marley or something. Just hang
Bob
out.
Marley.
A couple of
I
tunes.
don't, that's pretty cool. We've got Cecilia here saying, thank you, love the songs, Lior. Everyone's just loved tonight. We're very happy to have you, Lior. I do have one more question that I was going to throw at you. It's a simple one. I guess it's what keeps you curious about it. You know, why music and what keeps you just wanting to do it. And you certainly don't seem tired about it. You seem hungry still. Yeah.
Look, it's a good question. I think I love from an early. I have this distinct memory when I was 7 years old, and I heard this song on the radio, on TV, and it was a ballad, and it was like I just felt like really moved, yeah, I couldn't understand it, but I thought, how is it that this thing within a few seconds has completely like broken me down? And I think that's the power of music, but particularly also the power of songs, you know, and that's why I'm fascinated by the song format. It just has this incredible efficiency to just get to the core of us and break us down in a matter of, you know, seconds sometimes. So I'm constantly fascinated by that. And then I think in my teen years, music and writing songs was a way of me feeling like there was something else, something greater. It was, in a way, I guess it was the home of my spirituality. So, yeah, that's what keeps me going.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Lior. If anyone does want to donate to Lior and to Dunera, we're going 50-50 on this one, which is beautiful. It's such a pleasure to do these. We are volunteering tonight for all of you guys there. I've had a great time though. I would do it for nothing, believe me, any night of the week. But you can just visit dunera.com and go on there. There's a donate area there. And we'll just look at whatever you donated tonight, and over the next couple of days, feel free to just get on there. Thank you very much. We've just got these comments are always so wonderful. I hope you're all well out there. I hope you're all keeping warm and you're excited about life. And Lior, wish you well. We didn't talk about your family, but I know that you've got a beautiful family, so wish them well from all of us.
Thanks, Ilan. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome back and welcome home. See you soon. Lots of love.